So let's begin together with our call to worship. Actually, before we do the call to worship, let's take a deep breath together. Just come land here. Take a deep breath in. Fill up all the way into the chest. Pause at the top for a moment just to hold that breath and savor it. And then with the exhale, let go of all that you were doing before you came in here. All the conversations you were having, the errands, all that it took to get here. And another deep breath in. Filling all the way up. And let it go. Soften any areas of tension in your body. And just let yourself land here. We'll do one more deep breath in together. Because I always like to do things in threes. And let go of anything that might be rumbling around in the mind that might distract you from being present. And then together let's share our call to worship. There is but one presence and one power in the universe and in my life. God, the good and omnipotent. I'd like to begin together with a song. And you don't need to look at your bulletin because this song only has one word. The word is Haida.
Haida.
Haida. And if you want to know what it means, it actually means nothing. Actually, it's just, this is what's called a nigun. In Hebrew, this is an Israeli song. And a nigun is a wordless chant that just allows us to drop out of the thinking mind and just into the heart. And I know no better way of just creating cohesion in a group and inviting us to settle in than just to sing and join our breaths and our voices together without having to think about what any of it means. Haida, 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 da, 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 haida, 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 haida. So there's a little clap here. So do you want to play it? Yeah. Lucky to have Rose here with her drum. So when I go like this, you go like this. Let's try it together. Haida, 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 da, 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 haida, 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 da, da, haida, 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 a little bit at a time. Are there any announcements this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh wait, I think someone said yes before me.
Yeah.
Okay, she can go first.
Okay.
Board, annual meeting next Sunday. And we gotta make sure that we have as many people here as we possibly can. Because we can't vote unless we have a quorum. So, talk to your friends who are not here today.
Along those lines, remember that each year Unity requires renewal of our annual membership. There's membership forms back here on the table. If you haven't taken time to fill it out, please fill it out. Friends, new members or renewals are all welcome. There's no cost, no obligation, but please, we need a certain level of membership to keep in with Unity worldwide.
Yes.
Thank you. And you had an announcement?
Yes, besides teeth and many other things in life, I'm also celebrating that this Thursday night in this room from 7 to 8:15, I'm putting on a Kundalini yoga class. It's called, I wrote it down, I wanted to remember it. It's called Kundalini Yoga for Energy, Wisdom, and Wit. We're gonna laugh a lot. We're gonna do a lot of Kundalini Yoga breath work and movements. I think, it's a wonderful disease preventative, depression preventative, and it gives you a lot of energy and life force. So I encourage everyone to wear white.
7 to 9?
7 to 8:15.
Tonight?
It's Thursday night from 7 to 8:15 in this room. It's $12 at the door, but if any of you decide that you're going to commit, I'm going to take the kids back, but I'll be back at the end, and you can pay me $10 and I will write your name down on a list so that I know that you prepaid and that you're committing to it. But I just want to tell you that I'm really excited about it because I find that in a short period of time, it not only improves your physical stamina and your energy, it gives you great mind clarity, tons of creativity, and it's going to be with a lot of different people from the community that some haven't tried it, some have tried it, so it's just a place to we're going to discipline ourselves joyfully to free more of ourselves. Yeah, thank you for
Not only that, you lose weight. It was proven, scientifically proven, that you lose weight if you have a deeper breath and if you learn how to breathe properly. And it doesn't matter who we are, if we're in a stressful position, anywhere you are, whether it's fear or whether you're on a job or not, it's really important to deeply breathe and how to breathe properly. So it also, you can lose weight with this. It's been proven already. If you continue and you commit to doing it, yeah, it's proven.
Sounds like wonderful.
One more?
Another announcement?
Try to keep it short. So it's coming. It's almost here. The happening. I haven't promoted it that much, but there is a happening. So there's some information back there that tells you more of the details. I will tell you this much. This is the fourth time we've done a happening that is kind of exciting, and it's happening in the basement next Saturday.
At what time?
All day. So it runs from 9 to 5 in the basement, and it involves there are 5 speakers that will talk about the spiritual in their lifetime. And then the opportunity for everyone that comes will also talk about spirituality in their life. Everybody will have an opportunity without telling you the details. So I'll just add this. I got a call from Art Suggs, who was to be a speaker last week, and said, gee, I'm sorry, I have a funeral. So I don't panic too quickly and go out to my sources, and so one person I thought could do it, because he's on a panel of 3 very different ministers talking about spirituality in their life. So I need to find another minister, quite frankly, and I asked this woman, and she said, well, gee, I have a funeral on Long Island. I thought, what the heck? But she referred me to another woman who I've never heard of, with exceptional, she'll be amazing. You can read about her if you read back the bios on each speaker.
What's
She's
her
coming
name?
from Oneonta. She's got degrees and all kinds of things from Columbia University and so forth, and She's a spiritualist minister, and she's a psychic, and she's got all kinds of abilities. So I can't wait to hear her story.
What's her name?
Well, her first name is Story.
Okay.
How's
What
that?
I need.
She goes by Story
I've
Lou.
heard of her, yeah.
Story Lou, L-U.
Oh, Lou.
Lucille.
Okay, well, it sounds
So-
like it'll be, anything else you want to say about that event? Or
No.
we got, okay.
Yeah, congratulations on putting that together. That's a lot.
Okay, and also next weekend, May 4th and 5th, here in this church, we're going to have This Moment is Your Miracle, a weekend of Course in Miracle events with visitors from Utah, Jenny and Greg Donner, and they'll be doing talks, workshops, films, discussions, Saturday from 7 to 9, Sunday from 2 to 4, and Sunday from 4 to 6. We have flyers for that too.
Followers are,
You can go when you're ready.
it's after the hat.
Do we have any new members today who are here at Unity for the first time?
You can stay here.
No, okay. In case, I mean, I think I do know and recognize most of you, in case any of you do
It has
not
nothing to do
know
with
me.
that.
No, I wouldn't know that.
Okay, we're gonna move on. In case any of you don't know me, I am Rev Jody Kessler. I also go by the name Joyti. And I'm delighted to be here every few months. I come here to Unity, and it's always a high point for me to come and be here with you. Let's take this moment now, very briefly, to greet one another. Look around and see who's here. Say hello. Handshake. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations, all my relations. Try that with me. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations. All my relations. All life is sacred, the mountains and the seas. All life is sacred, the animals and the trees. All my relations. All my relations. All my relations. Part's easy. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey. All my relations. All my relations. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations. All my relations. Now, thinking about our connectedness, all of our relations, let's take this time now to offer in to our circle the names of anyone that we'd like to send healing to. People who are needing healing, strength, connection, peace, blessings. Dolores, Richie, Steve, Yeshua, God's all-encompassing love is doing its perfect work in and through us. Wholeness is established in every area of our lives, and so it is. Do we have a copy of the Daily Word?
Yeah.
Is there someone who would like to read it? Today's Daily Word. Okay.
Since I have it in my hand. Next one. Here we go. I have it in my hand. April 28th. Here we go. The affirmation for today is, I praise and bless the life energy in my body and mind. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore's healing from serious illness led to the founding of Unity Movement. She discovered that her intelligence could guide the life energy in her body. She wrote, I began to teach my body and got marvelous results. Speaking words of strength and power, Myrtle praised the life in every part of her body. She prayed, asking for strength to think only kind, loving, and sincere thoughts about her body. Myrtle refused to be discouraged when her progress seemed slow. Eventually, in 2 years, she realized wholeness. Following Myrtle's example, I released all thought of weakness or disease. In steadfast faith, I praised and blessed the life energy in my body and mind. I realized wholeness. Quote Luke 8:48, quoting Jesus, he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace.
Thank you.
Do another song together. And this one, you won't need to look at your sheet because it just has 2 words. And the words are your love. Your love. And it is actually a love song that I wrote, a love song to God. Source, spirit, divinity, essence. You fill in the blank, whatever name you like to call on that. On that, which has many names but is essentially unnameable. And it speaks to the presence of that love everywhere. Because what is that source, that divinity, but love? That is its nature, and that is our nature. So, the refrain is just the words, your love. You'll pick it up really quickly. And any harmonies that want to come out of your mouth, if you feel so inclined, feel free. In the tiniest atom, it vibrates from the furthest star. And the quiet stillness reverberates. Your love, that's it, let's try that. Your love, with the spinning spheres, it circulates through the window field, it oscillates, and the purple sunrise celebrates your love, your love. From the echoing mountains to the burning sand, from the horn of plenty to the outstretched hand, in the lover's moon, in the baby's cry, beneath the blanket of the sky, in every voice it resonates, in every face it radiates. Your love, your love, your
Beautiful.
Did you write that?
I did.
You're wonderful.
Thank you. And thank you, Rose, for your drumming on that. I love this. Does anyone need me to use this?
No.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. Always err on the side of people who are, I'm a little hard of hearing myself, so I appreciate when people use a microphone. So is that an okay volume? Can you
Yes,
hear okay?
that's good.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So today, I want to talk a little bit about the practice and the power of pilgrimage, taking a spiritual pilgrimage. Because I recently came back from a yatra. A yatra is a Sanskrit word which means spiritual pilgrimage, to India. And I was there for 3 weeks, and it was life-changing and powerful. It's my second time in India, but this time I went with a very specific purpose. How many of you have ever been on what you would consider a spiritual pilgrimage? Where did you go on your pilgrimage?
Nepal.
Oh, you went to Nepal. Was that recent? Somebody said that somebody had just come back from Nepal, and I guess it was you. Anyone
Does life
else?
count? Does life count?
Yeah, you know, we could think of our life as a spiritual pilgrimage. That's a great thought, Jerry. I really like that. Anyone else?
I've just been to various retreats, whether it's Omega or Kripalu or...
Yeah, we could think of that as pilgrimage.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify it as a pilgrimage in the sense that people here would know a pilgrimage, but it was definitely personal. So this was last month. This is a group tour, and as much as I wish people, as much as I wish the people there I could talk to about what I knew about that area, I was absorbing spiritual big time. So where we went was Peru. And we're talking very serious spiritual centers on this planet. This includes Machu Picchu, and Cusco is the capital of the Incas, and Lake Titicaca has some spots on it that are extremely spiritual. It's sad that the group I'm with probably had no clue about its history in this regard and so forth. But at least for me, it was personal pilgrimage.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I went to Unity Village last summer.
Yeah.
That was sort of a pilgrimage.
So really, it's a sense of going to a place that's sacred, and then we really feel some power in that place. And that's one of the things that makes it a pilgrimage. I'll just talk a little bit about mine, and I want to actually explore what pilgrimage is in general, not just talk about my pilgrimage. But many of you may know from things that I've spoke about in the past that I am a student of, a follower of the teachings of Ram Dass, who you may know him from the famous book he wrote back in the early 70s, Be Here Now. And he is still with us. He's very frail, and he's definitely an elder, but he's still with us and still pouring out wisdom. And he really shook things up in the late 60s as a Harvard professor when he was working with Timothy Leary, and they were doing experiments with psychedelics, and then he got fired from his job as a professor at Harvard. And he decided to go to India. This was about 1969. He decided to go to India because he wanted to find someone who knew what he called the map of consciousness. Someone who knew how to experience expanded states of consciousness without drugs, without needing to come down. And he knew that there were yogis in India somewhere who knew how to do this. And he wanted to find someone who was living in that heightened awareness all the time. And so he was led to one such being, whose name is Neem Karoli Baba, who is also known by the honorific Maharaji. And that's this one here. That was his guru, Neem Karoli Baba. He hadn't met Neem Karoli Baba yet. He went over to India, hoping that he could meet someone, and through a series of interesting, I don't even want to say coincidence, he was just led to meet Maharaji. And Maharaji, Neem Karoli Baba, was known as a great saint who had the power to perform miracles. And there are many, many stories of his miracles and his powers. But most important, those who were in Maharaji's presence were touched and bathed in this deep, deep love. And it was like nothing they'd ever felt before in any other human relationship. It was like God's unconditional love was being poured through this being, who appeared to be an old man in a blanket. And hearing the stories about how people felt when they were in Maharaji's presence, I have felt grief, because I felt like I missed out on that. I was only about 13 years old when this wave of Westerners had gone over to India and had a chance to meet him. Westerners that came back and transformed our culture with what they learned. Ram Dass, through all the books and teachings that he's given. Krishna Das, some of you may be familiar with his music. He brought that back from India because he was also there with Maharaji. And I was too young to be a part of that group, that wave of Westerners that got a chance to meet Maharaji in the body. And so, but I have many times been with Ram Dass, and Ram Dass has encouraged me to consider Maharaji as my guru as well. And I've had a hard time with that because I never met him in the body. All I had was that two-dimensional image. So when I found that there was a group of people who were going over to India to follow in the footsteps of Ram Dass and go to all the places where he had been and where he had been with Maharaji, to the temples, the ashrams, all of the sacred places, and to the holy land in India known as Deva Bhumi. Deva Bhumi means land of the gods, and it's in the foothills of the Himalayas. And that they were going to go to those places and meet people that that are still alive, that had known Maharaji. I was like, I'm there. It was one of those decisions when I found out that yatra, that pilgrimage was happening. It was led by a woman who's married to someone who knows, who had been with Maharaji back in that day. When I found out that she was leading that group, it was an immediate, there was no deliberation about it. It was an immediate yes, which is not typical for me because I tend to agonize over decisions, but this was, I'm there. And my main purpose in going was that I wanted to cup my hands and see if I could receive just even a drop of that sweet nectar of Maharaji's grace and that love. And I won't say a lot about what I did there, but the high point of the experience for me was to go to the ashram. I know I'm moving around a lot, I'm sorry. To go to the ashram, which was Maharaji's main ashram in Kainchi, which is in this Devi Bhumi area of India. And the place where Ram Dass had been with him, to sit and kneel down in the place right where Ram Dass sat with Maharaji, and to touch the place where Maharaji sat, his tucket, which is like a bench that he sat on, that was had a blanket on top of it, and to be able to touch that place and be right there and feel the energy in that place, the strong, strong energy, was just cracked my heart right open, and I cried and cried and cried, and I could feel his presence, and I could feel myself wrapped in his blanket. It was definitely a powerful, heart-opening experience to feel that sense of being enfolded in Maharaji's blanket and his love, and I was able to accept him more fully as my guru in this life, my spiritual guide. So I wanted to share about pilgrimage and what it means to go on a yatra. Usually, a spiritual pilgrimage is considered to be a physical journey toward a place of spiritual, sacred or religious significance. And it can also be, doesn't have to be necessarily to a particular place, it can also be an open-ended wandering, an undertaking with no specific destination in mind, where the journey itself becomes a quest of personal reflection on your faith, an expression of your devotion to God, to Source, to divinity, or to devotion to a teacher or lineage, or just simply to make spiritual amends, a karmic cleansing or purification. So those are the many ways and reasons why we can go on pilgrimage. A pilgrimage can also be used to bring awareness to a social cause. And you'll have here, you've probably heard me speak about her and sing about her, Peace Pilgrim, who walked across the country many times, almost 7 times, just walking and walking from all across the United States, speaking about her mission of peace. So that was a pilgrimage for a social cause. Pilgrimages can be done solo or as a shared group experience. When you think of spiritual pilgrimage, what are some of the places for you that come to mind and the religious traditions that encourage pilgrimage? Some of you may have gone on those, some of you.
India.
India?
Jerusalem.
The Wailing Wall.
Yep, the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, or the Western Wall. Yeah.
Lhasa.
Mm-hmm.
Central Park in New York.
Central Park in New York. Why is that? Is that a pilgrimage place for you?
Oh, it totally is. It's amazing. And there are all kinds of spiritual masters and wonderful. Just it's the most divine place in New York City.
I grew up in New York City, spent a lot of time in Central Park.
So
Yeah, I never thought it was a place of pilgrimage, but it was definitely some transformational experiences happened there.
Especially at Strawberry Fields,
Yeah.
right? Especially there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Utah.
Moab,
John
Utah.
Lennon's spirit is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do some of the Appalachian Trail this summer,
Appalachian Trail.
just for spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Peace Pilgrim started out on the Appalachian Trail. That was her first she was the first woman, I think, to hike the trail by herself, solo. Yeah.
she's so fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So there are countless places where people go for pilgrimage, and as you have so wonderfully expressed, they don't have to be holy sites that everybody else thinks of as a holy site. It could be any place that's sacred to you. Mecca, the Golden Temple. There's many different places that Catholics go for pilgrimages. The Vatican. There's the route of El Camino de Santiago in France and Spain. It's one of the oldest ones. There are countless ones. But in India, Bodh Gaya, which is the place that many Buddhists go, the place that where the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree. Or it could be any beautiful place on earth, even in your own state or town, where you're called to journey, any place that feels sacred to you. But what makes it a pilgrimage? Just going to a sacred site isn't necessarily a pilgrimage. It could be just sightseeing. The difference is the mindset that you're in. The difference is how you prepare yourself mentally and spiritually, and the attitude of devotion with which you undertake the journey. So I was reflecting on what I thought were some of the essential qualities of what makes something pilgrimage. And these are some of the ideas that came to mind, and maybe you have other ones that you can add to this. Number one, a pilgrimage is sparked by a calling, a deep calling. You may be familiar with Joseph Campbell's archetypal stages of the hero's journey, which is played out in myths and film and literature and stories of pilgrims and saints over the course of millennia. And the very beginning of the hero's journey is known as the departure, or the hearing and following of the call. And often that call is an insatiable yearning, a deep longing that is not being satisfied by staying with what is familiar, with our familiar world and way of life. There's a burning desire, but this is often accompanied by a fear of the unknown as well. So there's desire to step out of what is known, and yet there's trepidation and fear. And in order to begin a pilgrimage, the yearning for transcendence needs to become stronger than that fear of the unknown. So we have to get over that first spiritual hurdle. So another quality is that a pilgrimage requires an intentional stepping away from our usual world, our surroundings, our schedules, our rhythms, our social circles. In this way, we create space for new insight and awakening and healing. There's a saying in 12-step rooms, nothing changes if nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing. So we need to shake things up. We need to do something different. And a pilgrimage is definitely different. Another quality of pilgrimage is that a pilgrimage is spiritual purification. So this disconnecting from what is familiar allows us to release what is no longer serving us. It's a shedding of old skin, a peeling away of what no longer matters, and a walking toward that which supports our growth, a stepping into a new phase of life, setting new intentions, recommitting to what is true and essential. So it can be seen in a sense as an initiation, a stepping over a threshold. We want to be cracked open, shaken awake. We come back from our pilgrimage forever changed. By its very nature, and here's another quality, a pilgrimage takes us out of our comfort zone. Okay. Did you feel that when you, takes us out of our comfort zone. And I once saw, I love this, that I saw a man once at a festival wearing a t-shirt that said, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Oh, honey.
Isn't that true? Life begins at the end of your
Very
comfort
true.
zone. So when we go on pilgrimage, we make a decision to challenge ourselves physically and emotionally because that's where the growth happens. Now, that doesn't mean we need to suffer or be miserable. It's not about self-flagellation. But we have the opportunity to look at our attachments and to our creature comforts, to our possessions, to our habitual patterns of living that we've become so dependent upon. And it's an opportunity for us to practice letting go, trusting in God's care for us. And that in itself can be a deeper spiritual strengthener than where we go or what we see. It's the inner work that makes it a pilgrimage. And some people intentionally want to create a little edge to their pilgrimage by making it a little uncomfortable. What are some of the ways that pilgrims do this? Well, you may have heard of pilgrimages where people walk on their knees for either part or all of the way. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico is one of those places where people will walk on their knees for a good part of the journey because it cultivates humility, it shows devotion, and it's also uncomfortable and strenuous. And it is that being willing, intentionally uncomfortable, that brings one to a personal edge and shows their commitment and devotion. Someone here talked about Tibet, Lhasa, as a place of pilgrimage. And when the Tibetans do this, the Tibetan Buddhists, they do it prostrating the entire way. So there'll be a mantra, and a practice of mantra and prostration. So taking a few steps, reciting the mantra, and then lying down, full body prostration on the ground. Getting up, taking a few more steps with the mantra, lying down, prostrating on the ground. Doing that for 300 miles to go to some of the sacred. Can you imagine how long that takes and what commitment that takes? Yes.
In Quebec, there is a place called Saint Anne du Beaupré, and it is where miracles have happened. So just like in France, on their walls with the church, you'll see all the crutches and all the wheelchairs left, and they hang them on one of the church walls. It's very, very beautiful there. And then on their grounds, they have where you have to, you actually, if you can, you kneel, and you go up kneeling, going upstairs to the top to pray. And it's, like you said, a ritual, a way of showing not just humility, but that you are committed. And it's very beautiful there.
Some people, throughout history, you've heard of people making pilgrimages barefoot or wearing burlap or very plain clothes. And I'll just share a little bit also about my personal experience when I was on my recent pilgrimage. Because we were in the northern area of India in the mountains, I knew it was going to be very cold at night. And they said, be prepared, it could get down below 40 degrees at night. And there is no heat in the ashram where we're staying. So, at first I was like, oh, I hate being cold at night. And I love getting under my warm blankets and putting a heating pad on my feet and a cherry pit pillow on I love that. And here I was getting ready to go into the place where I was going to be in a very cold room at night. Not only that, but we didn't have any hot water. There was a solar hot water heater, but with that many people staying in the ashram, it didn't do it. So I had no hot water in my room and no heat. And the beds were really, really hard. They don't give you, in the ashrams, it's like very, very thin mattress. And they also don't give you toilet paper. So it was, for me, it was roughing it. But I knew that it was going to be like that. So I said in my prayers to Maharaji, I spoke to him and I said, I am willing to do whatever it takes to be in your presence, to go on this journey. I am willing to step out of my comfort zone. And my practice was to do it without complaining. And for me, that was definitely a new way of being around not being comfortable. I didn't complain. I kept bringing it back to a sense of gratitude that I was there and the growth that was going to happen from me being there. So that was my practice. And that was transformative for me. So we let go of the things that we're attached to, some of our things that we can get addicted to, screens, internet, TV, social media, our morning coffee, sugar. We eat simpler foods. So that's one of the ways that we can create that edge in pilgrimage. Transformation happens when we are willing to do something different. Another quality of pilgrimage is we keep the focus on God. And this is often done using a mantra or a prayer that is continually repeated. And this kind of pilgrimage doesn't need a destination. The destination is a state of mind and heart that one aspires to reach through the practice. Have any of you read the book, The Way of a Pilgrim? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And it tells the story of a Russian, 19th century Russian mendicant who was a beggar who travels through Ukraine, Russia, and Siberia. And his practice, he didn't have any destination, he was just going around, walking and praying. And the prayer that he used was the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And his main reason for going on this journey, this wandering, was because his heart longed to know what it truly meant to pray unceasingly. He was inspired by the teachings of St. Paul, who said, pray incessantly, or pray without ceasing. And he was trying to figure out what that meant and how you do it. And he was going to churches and he was going to monasteries, listening to sermons about how to do that continual prayer. But he wasn't finding his answer to that burning question. How does one pray without ceasing, and what transformative power does it have? Finally, in his wanderings, he was led to a spiritual mentor who gave him a rosary. And using the rosary, he recited that prayer 12,000 times a day. In his walking. He worked his way up to it. He started with 3,000 times. And then he went back to his mentor and he told him how it was going for him. His mentor said, good, now do it 6,000 times. And then finally 12,000 times. And then actually after that, it just became all of his waking consciousness praying, reciting that prayer. And the way he did it was he did it with the breath. Inhaling, Lord Jesus Christ. Exhale, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. So he said it silently while he was breathing. And I actually did the math on this and figured out that to do it 12,000 times, it would take 15 hours. I didn't do it for 15 hours. I figured it out by extrapolating from, I recited it 10 times, and then I timed it, and then I calculated from there 15 hours to do it 12,000 times. And in this way, doing the prayer with the breath, it consumes one's whole being and becomes one's pulse. It resonates in every cell. Doing that, there's no room for engaging in idle chit-chat with others. And you just keep focused on your prayer. And it begins to even come alive in the dream state. The prayer becomes woven into the fabric of your consciousness. And it's just a little passage from this pilgrim. We don't even know his name. But this is what he said about the practice. And now I am wandering about repeating incessantly the prayer of Jesus. To me, it has greater value than anything else on earth. Occasionally, I walk 70 versts or so, a verst, and that would be about 46 miles. And I do not feel it at all. I am conscious of only one thing, my prayer. When bitter cold pierces me, I say it more eagerly and warm up in no time. When I am hungry, I begin to call on the name of Jesus more often, and I forget about food. When I am ill and rheumatic pains set in my back and legs, I concentrate on the prayer and no longer notice the discomfort. When people do me wrong, my wrath and indignation are quickly forgotten as soon as I remember the sweetness of the prayer of Jesus. In a way, I have become a half-witted person. I have no anxiety and no interest in the vanities of the world, for which I care no longer. I am longing by habit for only one thing, to be left alone and to pray incessantly. When I am doing this, I am filled with joy. Beautiful. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And my Guru Karoli Baba also had the practice of praying incessantly. Ram, he would recite one of the names of God. Ram, 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 always under his breath. Ram, Ram, Ram. Gandhi used to do that as well. Ram, Ram, Ram. Now, when Peace Pilgrim went on her pilgrimage, and she started in 1953, she was walking for two purposes. One, to teach about peace, to meet people, and to talk about peace on all levels. Peace between nations, peace between groups, peace between individuals, and our all-important inner peace. And the other purpose was to do this unceasing prayer, to keep herself concentrated on her prayer for peace. And she said that after a few years she discovered something. She discovered that she no longer even needed the prayer as a discipline. It was just a natural praying without ceasing. And her personal prayer was, make me an instrument through which only truth can speak. Make me an instrument through which only truth can speak. Pilgrimage is less about going somewhere and more about coming home. It's not the same as being a tourist or sightseeing, although visiting a sacred site can be a powerful catalyst for spiritual opening. On pilgrimage, we drop into contemplative practice, prayer, meditation, writing, chanting, service. And we set aside this sacred time in our lives in which the only focus is to be the matters of the soul. When we choose to go on a pilgrimage, we've already ventured away from ourselves, and now we are setting out in a longing to journey back to who we are. But we do not need to go to the edges of the earth to learn who we are, only to the edges of ourselves. So that's the essence of pilgrimage. Let's take a moment now to come into a few moments of meditation. So I invite you to get comfortable in your seat and let your eyes close. The great Sufi poet Hafiz said, I felt in need of a great pilgrimage. So I sat still for 3 days. So that inner pilgrimage can happen just in being silent, observing the inner landscape. So I invite you to bring your attention to your breath. Notice where you sense the breath, either in the nostrils, or in the chest, or in the belly. The breath be your prayer. There's an ancient tantric text in which it is written, wherever, whenever you feel carried away, rejoicing in every breath, there is your meditation hall. Nowhere is more holy than this. Right here is the sacred pilgrimage. Live in alertness for such a moment, as if it were your one meeting with the Creator. Truly living in the present moment, awake to the mystery and to God's grace, is both the essential journey and the ultimate destination for each of us. Rejoicing in every breath is the most fundamental way we have available to us in every moment to pray unceasingly. Nowhere is more holy than this. Right here is the sacred pilgrimage. Just allow yourself to breathe with that for a few more moments. You can let the eyes open. I have another song. I can't possibly talk about pilgrimage without singing my song about Peace Pilgrim. I know I've sung that here a few times in the past, so some of you may know it and remember it. This one you may want to look at your has the second line changes where it says Seattle to Atlanta, New York to Anaheim. We'll sing that together the first time, and then the second and third time it's the other two lines that are at the bottom. So I don't want to say a whole lot about Peace Pilgrim. I've talked about her in the past, but the song tells the story.
that.
1 mile at a time. Try that.
Step by step, 1 mile at a time.
Seattle to Atlanta, New York to Anaheim.
Seattle to Atlanta, New York to Anaheim.
State by state, town by town.
State by state and town by town.
She'd walk across America till they lay those weapons down. Try that. She'd walk across America till they lay those weapons down. No one knew just what her age was, but her hair was silver gray. If you asked her what her name was, Peace Pilgrim, she would say. Sorry, townspeople gathered around her to talk about her mission. I'm gonna do that again. I got confused with the lyrics. Let me try that again. No one knew just what her age was. Her hair was silver gray. If you asked her what her name was, Peace Pilgrim, she would say. Townspeople gathered around her as she talked about her mission in churches, schools, on street corners, wherever folks would listen. Step by step, 1 mile at a time. Texas to Montana, Utah to Caroline. State by state and town by town. She'd walk across America till they lay those weapons down. A bed of forest leaves, a canopy of stars. So simple were her needs, though she journeyed far. She carried no possessions, but a toothbrush and the comb. With the love of God surrounding her, everywhere was home. She fasted until given food, walked till given shelter, touched the hearts and changed the lives of everyone who met her. Days of Joe McCarthy and the Korean War, Cuban missiles, Vietnam, and El Salvador. She said, I'll remain pilgrim till all fighting will cease. 25,000 miles I shall walk for peace. Step by step, 1 mile at a time, across the Mississippi and the Mason-Dixon line. State by state and town by town, she'd walk across America till they lay those weapons down. So your part is just to sing this step by step. Step by step. Step by step. Just step by step. Step by step. Step by step. Keep it going. Step by step. Step by step. Seattle to Atlanta. Step by New York to Anaheim. Step by step. Step by step. From Texas to Montana. Step by Utah to Caroline. Step by step. Step across Mississippi and the Exodus line. Step by step. Step by step. She'd walk across America till they lay those weapons down by step. Okay, so before we do our love offering, I wanted to see if anyone has any other sharings or something that touched or inspired you today, or something that you want to share about this subject of pilgrimage, the transformational power of pilgrimage. Yes.
Well, I was praying because I've been having some personal difficulties in certain areas and thinking that my family had abandoned me because they rarely come back to our area. And all of a sudden, I had been talking like last week about my relatives in Delaware, how much I miss them and everything. And the very next day, they came into town. Then, a few days later, my sister from Saratoga came into town. And then a few days later, my other sister from Florida came into town and stayed with me. And then some other relatives. And here I was, swarmed with a lot of support and help. And it was truly my prayers answered.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I was on an amazing journey to South Carolina to visit my son, who is a PhD, and I just adore him. And then I got to visit with my wonderful friends and his stepdaughter, who for years would not talk to me, and I've been praying and praying and praying. And not only did she talk to me, but she arranged for me to be able, worked with the airlines for many years, so I could fly free at any time, anywhere I want to go now, on American Airlines. So prayer does work.
Yeah.
Pray for what you want.
Triumphant.
Favorite place, as I think of all the places I go, I like to hike, and so I like to be in the woods, but regarding this, generally what we're talking about today, releasing your mind, I just let it happen. Just walking on the sand next to the ocean. Preferably with nobody there. And just taking that in, you might listen to the waves, or feel the wind and whatever, but you can really get lost into never land.
So now we have the opportunity to support the good work of this spiritual fellowship. So if you have an offering that you would like to make, we'll pass around. Before we pass them around, though, let's bless our love offering. This morning, out in all directions. Very short little chant sending love and peace and healing out. So some of the people that we mentioned earlier, in our blessing of prayer requests, if you want to hold them in your heart, anyone else that you'd like to invite into your heart and mind as we send this out. You don't need to look at your words, it's just call and response. Peace to all, peace to all, love to all, love to all, light to all, light to all, joy to all, joy to all, health to all, health to all, wealth to all, wealth to all, strength to all, strength to all, grace to all, grace to all, peace to all.